Welcome to What You Didn't Hear. On today's episode, we're taking a deep dive into William Bradford, the first governor of the Plymouth Colony, and the very first Christmas for the Mayflower Pilgrims. So come jump in with me while we explore how the governor of Plymouth stole Christmas. When we hear about the Pilgrims at Plymouth, the story almost always gravitates towards the first Thanksgiving, which took place the year after they made landfall in 1621. But tucked away in the history books is a much smaller, stranger story, Governor Bradford's quiet little war against Christmas. So let's dig into what actually happened on Christmas Day in 1621 in Plymouth Colony. After multiple delays and a failed attempt to depart England in August of 1620, the Mayflower and its sister ship, the Speedwell, finally set out in early September. But after even more complications, the Mayflower was forced to continue alone. This meant their arrival in the Americas came much later in the season, and left the Pilgrims facing a brutal winter with limited supplies and almost no shelter. On November 19th, they spotted present-day Cape Cod. They attempted to sail south toward the colony of Virginia, where they were actually supposed to settle, but harsh storms forced them back. On November 21st, they dropped anchor near what is now Provincetown Harbor. On December 7th, the first scouting party went ashore to search for a suitable location to build shelters. But they were wildly unprepared for winter conditions far harsher than anything they'd faced in England. It's safe to assume that without the help of the local native people, the Plymouth Colony would have likely been a complete failure. Nearly half of the Mayflower's crew didn't survive the winter, and only 53 of the original 102 passengers lived to see the spring of 1621. While the passengers remained on the Mayflower through the worst of the cold and sickness, the crew and able-bodied men went ashore to build shelters and gather food, with crucial assistance from the Wampanoag. It was bleak, it was tragic. So when I approach the episode about the governor who stole Christmas, I do so with full respect for how desperate their situation really was. Surviving the first winter was only half the battle. The beliefs that shaped this colony ran just as deep as the cold. And those beliefs, they didn't leave much room for Christmas cheer. A good portion of the Mayflower's passengers were separatists fleeing the Church of England to build a society rooted in strict Puritan religious practice. Others were hired laborers, servants, farmers, or businessmen hoping for opportunity in New England after the failed attempt to reach Virginia. In the 1600s, Christmas traditions in England weren't far off from what we recognize today. Feasts of roasted meats and sweets, evergreen decorations, drinking and gambling, singing, and general merrymaking. But Puritans rejected these celebrations. Since the Bible didn't explicitly instruct Christians to observe Christmas or Easter, they refused to recognize either holiday. For them, December 25th was simply another day of labor. A journal entry from the Mayflower reads, "Monday, the 25th day, we went on shore, some to fell timber, some to saw, some to rive, and some to carry. So no man rested all that day." While men went ashore to work on the Plymouth plantation, others who remained aboard the ship dipped into the Mayflower's beer stores and celebrated quietly in their own way. Just enough to acknowledge the holiday, but not enough to challenge Puritan authority. And that brings us to the next December, when Plymouth had finally found a bit of stability, and welcomed a brand new group of colonists who brought their own ideas about how Christmas should be celebrated. Fast forward 1 year to 1621. The colony has survived and new settlers have arrived, and suddenly William Bradford finds himself facing something that the deadly winter had not prepared him for: holiday spirit. In early November of 1621, a new ship arrived at Plymouth. Most of the passengers weren't seeking religious refuge. They were seeking opportunity. These newcomers brought with them the Christmas customs that Bradford and the Puritans found rowdy and irreverent. Only a few weeks after what we now call the first Thanksgiving, work remained constant. Winter preparation was in full swing, and Bradford routinely sent every able-bodied man out to gather wood. But on December 25th in 1621, a number of the newcomers objected to the governor's orders. From William Bradford's journal, he refers to himself in the third person as the Gov, and he writes, "On the day called Christmas Day, the Gov called them out to work, as was used. But most of this new company excused themselves and said it went against their consciousness to work on that day. So the Gov told them that if they made it a matter of conscience, he would spare them till they were better informed." So at first, Bradford agreed to let the non-Puritan newcomers observe the holiday, assuming, of course, that they would do so quietly in their homes in reverent prayer. But when Bradford returned from his morning work, he did not find prayerful reflection. He found sports, singing, games, celebration, all out in the open. Again from his journal. When they came home at noon from their work, he found them in the street at play openly, some pitching the bar and some at stoolball, and such like sports. So he went to them and took away their implements, and told them that this was against his consciousness, that they should play while others work. He warned them that if they wanted to treat the day as a sacred observance, then they needed to stay inside and observe it. There would be no gaming or reveling in the streets. Their games were confiscated, and the men were put to work like everyone else. In the years that followed, the Puritans formally banned Christmas celebrations altogether, imposing a 5-shilling fine on anyone caught observing the holiday. There is no real record of this penalty being enforced, mostly because Christmas celebrations quickly faded out after this incident. The ban would eventually be repealed in 1681, and almost 2 centuries later, in 1870, Christmas was officially recognized as a federal holiday in the United States. So what really happened that December day in 1621? In a colony born from hardship, faith, and sheer endurance, Christmas wasn't the warm, twinkling celebration we imagine today. It became instead a flashpoint, a moment where cultures, beliefs, and expectations collided on the frozen streets of Plymouth. William Bradford didn't set out to steal Christmas, but in his drive for order, unity, and Puritan discipline, he certainly shut it down. Yet this small episode, this confiscation of stoolball bats and bars, reminds us that history is built just as much from tiny, very human moments as from grand events like the Mayflower landing or the first Thanksgiving. The story of the governor who stole Christmas isn't just a quirky footnote. It reveals the tension between personal freedom and communal survival, between religious conviction and cultural difference, and between what the Pilgrims wanted their new world to be and what it was quickly becoming. And while the Puritans may have succeeded, at least temporarily, in keeping Christmas out of Plymouth, the holiday, and all its music, feasting, revelry, and play, would eventually return to New England with a vengeance. Thank you for taking this deep dive with me into a lesser-known chapter of early American history. If you enjoyed learning what you didn't hear about the first Christmas in Plymouth, be sure to follow the show, leave a review, and join me next time as we uncover more stories hiding between the lines of history. Until then, stay curious. Deep dive.